Hello everybody. Yes, the headless voice again. What we have here are 4 different types of sprue cutters. Okay? They range from 99¢ at Harbor Freight Tools. I'll put them in order of cost. 99¢. These are Mr. Hobby. They came with a basic toolkit for working on models. It came in this box. It had a small file. It had a set of tweezers, the sanding sticks I added, and that was about it. It was $16. We have Zirin cutters. This was the first serious cutters I bought. And we have a pair of GodHands. Okay? And what we have here in the background right here, and I'll be able to pull it up on screen. I'll do a better job of it, and I'll readjust the camera as we go, is a microscope. It's a digital video microscope. And on the screen right now, I'm going to go ahead and adjust the camera. We're going to go through this. On the screen right now is a piece of sprue I cut with the cheap cutters. And I want to be able to get in here and look at this piece of sprue and see how well the cutters did. Okay? What my goal here with this video is to be able to compare the 4 different cutters and see what kind of nib marks they leave. And I want to be able to look at it really well zoomed so I can see just how good it's doing. Okay? There's also some technique I'm going to try with it. Now, the GodHands, I always keep the cover on them. Alright, so let's get started. I have some leftover sprue bits here. Let me zoom back out. I have some leftover sprue bits here from working with Exia Dark Matter. And I don't know what all these extra pieces are, but there's sure a lot of them. And there's a lot of identical parts too. I'm going to mainly concentrate on these right here. Okay? And what I'm going to do is I'm going to try to flush cut them. I got 4 pieces. I got 4 cutters, the 4 identical pieces. I'm going to try to flush cut them with those 4 cutters. When I'm done with that, I'm going to try a technique for cutting parts off the sprue that I found somewhere. Now, I don't want to hurt that because that's the figure for Exia Dark Matter. And we're going to look at my cuts under the microscope, and we're going to see how well the cuts are doing with each one. Okay, I'm probably going to pick a similar place on here because you can tell when I move out from under the bright lights. Because if I use a similar spot on each of the 4 parts, it would be comparable. So I'm going to go with the base parts because this is going to be the hardest part to reach. Okay, and again, I have a set of identicals on another sprue, so I'll be able to compare different techniques. Up first, we're going to go with the Harbor Freight Tools on there, and I'm going to try to take some care when I do this. I'm not going to just try to remove the parts from the sprue, clip. We're going to try to do this the best we can. So I'm cutting up as close as I can on this, and my goal here is to see, does the type cutter matter? Because if dollar cutters are going to work great, I am going to be happy with it. Okay, so just roughly looking at it, and this camera should be able to focus on that, and again, we're out of the bright lights, but roughly looking at it, it doesn't look like it does a good job. So let me move this out of the way. Let's get our part in here and see if we can find the nib mark on it. Okay, and I might have to hold it a little bit. I got some tweezers so I could look at it well. There it is. There's a nib mark, and there's a focus adjustment. There we go. Perfect. Okay, so let me zoom this camera in, and I'm doing a few awkward angles because I want this camera in position and not move it around much. You can see that that's leaving a pretty good nib mark on there. All right, and if we turn it over and look at the other side, we are finding a pretty good nib mark in all of the places. Okay, so there you go. There's a good microscopic look at what your cheap Harbor Freight tool cutters are doing. So let me try the Mr. Hobbies now. We got the Mr. Hobbies, and we got our sprue, and I'm going to try to cut it out real carefully again, because we want this to be as work-free as I can. So I'm trying to be careful with it, and I'm trying to do this on camera, and I've got such a tight camera angle that it's hard to do. Okay, and again, they're identical parts in identical locations, so no one can claim foul. All right, we've got the Mr. Hobby cutter part. It's coming up to the microscope right now, and that doesn't look too much different than the 99-cent Harbor Freight tool cutter, to be honest with you. I'm not really seeing any advantage here. Now, this is the part with the Mr. Hobby, and coming over right next to it, that is the same location on the... And you know what? I'm not sure which one did a better job. So but that part does look that nib mark right there looks a little bit better. Let me get the focus a little bit there, cleaner. That nib mark looks a little bit better on this end. But then again, you know, they don't all look quite the same on here, so I can't really comment. Those both look about the same. I can't see the purpose in buying one versus the other right there. I can't see it. So let's go with the Zirons. Now, these are not cheap. These are like $30 cutters, $25, $30 cutters. They're kind of old. I've had them a while. These have been my go-to cutters for the longest time. And I like them better than the Harbor Freight tools for cutting things. So let's get in here. Let's cut a piece off. And again, I'm trying to do the best job I can with these, as close to the part as I can, so I have less work to do with them. So I take my Zirin cut part, and let's see what it looks like under Mr. Microscope. Okay. And I'm going to have to adjust the focus again. But there we go. There's the focus. There it is. And we can see this does actually look a little bit better to me. My fingernails look great at like 600 magnification. Actually, this is not full magnification for this microscope. It's on weekend. It's on the weekend of things. And then this end over here. I don't know. I don't know if it really looks much better to me than the others. I can't see any improvement in how the plastic was nipped. To the naked eye, it looks better. But on the microscope, I don't know. Okay. And again, to the naked eye, it does look better. Just barely. All right. Let's pull out the big guys now. The big guns are here. The GodHands. Okay. Now, when I've used these for about a year now, and what I feel when I use them is I feel like they're going to break. They haven't. They've actually held up really well. I feel like the blades will dull down over time. As far as I can tell, they haven't. These are just things I feel. Okay? Now, this isn't how I usually use these. I'm going to get in as close as I can with those GodHands on this part. I'm just trying to make sure I'm still on camera. And I'm going to nip that part. Now, this feels like it does a much better job cutting the part. It just has that feel. Okay? It felt like that part had already separated up here. Now, I've cut them all from underneath, so let's not do something where someone's going to complain. Alright, we got the piece cut off by the GodHands. Let's mic them, microscope it, and see. Okay? Now, if you look at that, I've noticed on quite a few of the cut parts, they were pitting. This didn't pit. We come over here to this one. I'm going to have to adjust the focus a little bit. Okay, it doesn't look like it pitted as much. And we could do this end up here. See, this is what I mean by pitting. This one looks like it had a pit, like it dug a divot in there as it was cutting. Okay? Now, visibly to the naked eye, I'm going to take the Zirin cutter. We're going to put the Zirin on there, and we're going to put the GodHand on there, and I don't know if it's going to show them both. This is a Zirin, and that's the GodHand. And it looks to me like the GodHand cut a little bit more clean. So I'm turning the parts around, and we're going to compare similar spots. Okay. First the Zirin, and then the GodHand. Now, if you ask me, that's definitely cleaner with the GodHand. Alright, now, having done that, there's a technique that I've read about, and I want to put that in a safe place because it's got a figure on it. There's a technique that I read about for cutting parts out, and it was actually in one of the Gundam direction kits, and I've seen videos where other people have been doing it. For this technique, it doesn't matter which of your 4 cutters you start with. I'm going to start with the cheap ones because I don't really care. And I'm cutting the part off the sprue. And I'm leaving the sprue attachments to the part. Okay? So I've cut the part off the sprue. And the camera don't want to focus. It's because it wants to focus on that microscope. And I left the sprue attachment parts. What I'm going to do now is come in and get them with the GodHands. Now, one of the reasons this is good is there's stress on the part as you're trying to cut it off the sprue, because the sprue wants to hold it and you're trying to remove it. You're still doing that here, but you're not flexing the sprue. The parts are more free to move. Second, you can position things a lot better when you're free of the sprue. So I'm going to go ahead and get the GodHands and cut this one. Okay. And I'm going to try to do the best I can with this one, like I have on everything so far. But it's a lot easier to get in here with the GodHands and cut my parts. Okay, a lot easier to come here with the GodHands. And I'm doing 3 spots on here, so we have something to compare about. If you ever watch the Mythbusters, they like to do things 2 or 3 times themselves, just in case you have some random fluctuation that messes you up. Okay, there, now you can see what I'm doing. Alright, now let's put this under the microscope. And I'm in this hand, I have the one I just cut, and the one that I'm putting under here first is the one I just cut. Okay, this thing doesn't have autofocus. I wish it did, but it does not. It's kind of fun that way. All right, there's the part I just cut. All right, now I'm getting the identical spot on the part that came from. They're not identical. Ew. There should be. They're not. It attached in a different spot. Okay. That's fun. Alright, now let's go through all 3 spots. We have this spot from the new method. Okay. And on this end, we have this spot here from the new method. And up here, we have that spot from the new method. And you can see it's leaving almost no nib mark on it. I'm trying to move this a little bit so it'll stay on camera. Almost no nib mark on that thing. And what I'm going to do is go ahead and take apart, because they weren't attached the same way on this sprue. I'm going to take apart and just cut it off with the GodHands like I did before. And trying to be as careful as I can to remove it the best I can. But I'm removing it from the sprue while it's attached. Okay, these GodHands just cut through it like it's butter every single time. They cut it really well. Now that part tore off, so I'm going to try to trim it a little bit. Alright, now you've been looking at the piece that I nipped off first with the big cheap cutters, and I nipped it on the sprue. I cut the sprue off and then cut the sprue off the part. There you go. Here's the one where I cut it with the GodHands from the tree, sprue tree, right off. Okay, you can see that nib mark right there. And here's the one where I removed it. They look pretty identical, don't they? Let's go to another one. This is the one I just removed. Here's the one where I did the two-step process and used the cheap cutters to cut free it from the sprue, and then use the GodHands to remove it. And you can see there's a big difference there. I didn't really want to compare here because it felt like this is the one I just removed with the GodHands. It almost felt like that tore off the tree. Okay? And here's the one that I did the new way with the two-step. It's definitely much cleaner. 2 out of 3 look much cleaner by doing it the new way. So, this is what I mean by the new way. I take a part. Let's say I want this part right here. Okay. I take a part. I take my cheap cutters. Go click. 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 It felt like that was doing a much better job, and now the microscope tells me it's doing a better job. Alright, and then I take my GodHands and I get in here as tight as I can do it and cut it. And sometimes it feels like I'm way too tight, but I have found that never mattered with the GodHands. Feeling like you're way up too tight on there. Okay? Now let's look. I'm going to look at this part right here. How well that cut off. And I'm going to have to adjust the focus because we're a little bit different depth. Okay, it feels pretty smooth. It isn't by any means. But if you look at that, that looks like I'm removing. See, there's no tearing or flash on that. Whereas if we look at this side, there's a little bit of tearing or flash. And that's one of the things I noticed with the other trimmers here. I'll show you what I'm talking about. Let's get the cheap part out again. This is what was cut by the cheap ones. Okay? It looks more like it's tearing it than cutting it, to be honest with everyone. So I like the new method. That's what I would recommend. I would recommend going ahead and cutting, removing the part by cutting the sprue, and then cutting the remaining sprue pieces from the part. So cut the sprue to remove the part, and then remove the remaining sprue pieces with the expensive cutters. It's also less stressful on the cutters because they're not flexing as hard, and these guys are a little bit on the expensive side. Are they worth it? It depends on how much you like cleaning up parts. I don't like cleaning up parts with nib marks, and what I've been learning with the GodHands is I have almost no cleaning up with them to my naked eye anyhow. The microscope says something else, but my naked eye says I don't have much cleanup. In fact, right now I'm just cleaning this part with my fingernail, and I bet it makes a big difference just with my fingernail. You also have to remember, when we're looking at this on the microscope, we are looking at it under pretty good magnification. Like right here is a figure. It's one of the reasons I bought the microscope. I can't see that thing. Oh, but now I sure can see it. Okay, this figure is tiny. And I can see that she doesn't have a face on the microscope. Yeah, something of a face, but she doesn't have much of a face. But she sure is tiny. And I think it might be easier to paint this way. Only problem is, even my smallest paintbrush, when you get it in there, is huge. So it'll be fun. But anyhow, I just wanted to do that. I promised someone I would do it a while back, and I haven't done it. So now I have. So here's my recommendation. If you don't mind a little bit of work, you don't want to spend money on sprue cutters, honestly, the 99-cent cutters cut as well as the $16 cutters did. I couldn't see too much difference between them on the microscope. The Zirin did do a slightly better job, but not a huge amount. The GodHands did a better job, I don't know if it's worth this $50, $60 you pay for them. But when you use the second method where you cut the sprue, then remove the sprue nubs from the part, it definitely worked better. And for that, these work fine. In fact, I'd rather use the cheapos. I'd rather use the cheapos for cutting sprue in half than the expensive ones, because, oh yeah, damage a blade on these, I go buy a new one. In fact, I don't think I'll damage a blade on these that way. Same thing with these. These are definitely a step up from these. They just, I mean, look at them. They're built the same. They got the same spring on them. And it does look like this is stainless steel, however. In those lights, you can see the glitter on this, and you don't have this. These are probably iron, and these are probably stainless steel. We go to the Zirin. The spring is very different. That's a much better spring. You've still got the same stainless steel look to them. These are much older. I've had them for 10 years, and they work great. Go to the GodHands. You got a spring inside there. You got adjustment points for adjusting how, if you don't like how the blade is going in, you can adjust it a little bit. You can adjust the stop on it. I mean, you got all these adjustments on the GodHands you don't have on the others, so you could actually set that so it doesn't quite cut all the way through the part. Well, I hope you enjoyed. And yes, I do have a microscope because I'm kind of a geek. And I will talk to you all later.